After the tragic and controversial death of a prominent conservative figure, many influencers on the right became understandably frightened for their safety. The incident served as a reminder that expressing political opinions online can sometimes put lives at risk. If people begin to receive violent threats simply for sharing their views, it's natural for them to reconsider how they present their content. Some creators, in pursuit of attention, resort to using offensive language or stirring controversy, but such behavior can attract dangerous individuals. This was evident in one case where an individual acted violently out of personal offense, even though the situation made little rational sense. Now, another commentator, Myron, appears to be following in similar footsteps, choosing to speak publicly at college campuses despite facing criticism and hostility for his views on sensitive topics like religion, gender, and race. His actions highlight the risks public figures face when their opinions divide audiences and provoke strong emotional responses. This guy texted me completely out of nowhere one day, saying, "If I ever catch you in public, you're gonna meet Charlie." Now, when I first read it, I honestly laughed. My first instinct was to reply with a laughing emoji, not because I found it funny, but because I wanted to show him that I wasn't rattled. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of thinking he'd gotten under my skin. Still, even as I hit send, there was a part of me that knew this wasn't just harmless trolling. That little exchange, as ridiculous as it seemed, was another reminder of the kind of ugly stereotypes and dangerous bravado that flood the internet every single day. The digital world has made it easy for people to say things they'd never have the nerve to say face-to-face. It didn't stop at one line either. After his opening threat, he kept going, calling me a fake motivational speaker, accusing me of demonizing women, and throwing in a handful of crude, unnecessary insults. There was no real conversation there. It was pure hostility wrapped in a desperate attempt to provoke a reaction. Then he doubled down with another message. "Don't ever do another street interview, or you're gonna meet Charlie." It was the same warning dressed up as a challenge, a way to make me feel unsafe about doing the work I do, about speaking publicly, about existing in a space where opinions get amplified and misinterpreted. Now, here's the thing. Over the years, I've received plenty of negative comments. If you've ever been in the public eye, even on a small scale, you know that criticism comes with the territory. You get used to people disagreeing with you, mocking you, or saying you're wrong. That's all part of it. But what's different now is the level of aggression. There's a big difference between someone saying, "I don't like your content," and someone sending you a message that sounds like a death threat. That's not a debate. That's intimidation. And I've learned not to minimize those messages anymore. It's easy for people on the outside to say, "Oh, it's just the internet, don't take it seriously," but that kind of advice doesn't mean much when you've seen stories of influencers, streamers, or public figures who were actually harmed because of some online feud or a fan who took things too far. The idea of keyboard courage, that false sense of power people get when hiding behind a screen, might seem harmless until someone decides to act on their words. The scariest part is that you never know who's serious and who's not. The internet gives everyone a mask, and behind that mask, anyone can be a threat. When I first started doing public interviews and posting content online, I didn't think much about safety. I was focused on the creative side, telling stories, expressing ideas, sparking conversations. But the more my visibility grew, the more I realized that exposure comes with a price. For every person who supports you, there's someone who feels personally offended by something you've said, even when it wasn't directed at them. Some people take your success as a challenge. They think you owe them something, or that they have the right to bring you down, just because they can type a few words into a message box. So when I say that I don't take messages like that lightly, I mean it. I don't let fear control me, but I also don't shrug it off. You can't assume every threat is empty. Keyboard courage has a way of finding real-world consequences when the wrong person takes it personally. There's always that one person who doesn't care about repercussions, the one who wants to make a name for themselves, to feel powerful, even if it means hurting someone else. The more I thought about that message, the more it hit me how normalized this kind of thing has become. Threats have turned into a form of performance, a way for people to show off their fake toughness. It's like they think being aggressive online gives them credibility, or makes them relevant. But what they don't realize is that behind every tweet, every DM, there's a human being on the receiving end who has to decide whether to take it seriously, whether to report it, or whether to just move on and pretend it didn't happen. For me, I try to strike a balance. I don't want to live in fear, but I also don't want to be reckless. If I see a threat that feels specific, I take it seriously. I document it. I tell people around me. Because the truth is, the line between digital words and physical danger is thinner than ever. One comment can become an obsession, and one obsession can turn into an act of violence. At the same time, I refuse to let that kind of energy stop me from doing what I love. You can't let fear dictate your purpose. If I did, I'd never step outside, never create, never speak my mind. The key is awareness, knowing when to laugh it off and when to step back and protect yourself. Every creator, every influencer, every public figure has to make that decision at some point. In the end, that message, "If I ever catch you in public, you're gonna meet Charlie," wasn't just some random insult. It was a symbol of what happens when social media turns toxic, when people start confusing online personas with real life. It reminded me how fragile you feel when strangers know your name, your face, your schedule, and think they have the right to threaten you because they disagree with a few words you said into a microphone. It's ugly, it's unnecessary, and it's become far too common. So yeah, I hit him back with a laughing emoji. Maybe that was my way of saying, "You don't scare me." But deep down, I knew it wasn't about being scared or brave. It was about staying aware, staying grounded, and remembering that even a few words on a screen can carry real weight when they come from the wrong person. That's why I posted the tweet, not because I wanted to stir drama, but because I wanted to show you what creators deal with in the wild. These aren't just mean comments, they can be death threats. I want people to understand the difference between criticism and an outright threat to your life. And this guy wasn't just talking. In some of his live streams, he literally brandished a gun, held up a magazine, and even had a framed certificate on the wall that read something like "expert at shooting." Seeing that on camera was unsettling. It's one thing to rant. It's another to build a persona around intimidation and then validate it with props and alleged credentials. Whether or not that certificate means anything legally, the image it projects is clear: intimidation. Let me be clear. I don't want trouble. I don't encourage violence of any kind. I've always said that the world would be better if people resolved disputes like adults, through conversation, not threats. But I also live in the real world, and the real world isn't always neat or fair. That's why I believe in the right to defend yourself. I support the Second Amendment not because I enjoy the idea of confrontation, but because I recognize the responsibility of being able to protect yourself and your loved ones if a situation goes south. Self-defense isn't about playing tough on camera. It's about having a backup plan for your safety when threats escalate beyond words. There's a balance to it. I try not to posture or provoke for the sake of clout. I don't thrive on fear. But I also can't ignore the reality that being public makes you a target. When someone says, "You're gonna meet Charlie," it's not just messy talk. It's a message that could inspire someone unstable to act. That's the chilling part. We all know trolls and hotheads exist, but there are people who actually mean it and who might have the means or the mental state to follow through. Posting that tweet was my way of documenting the pattern and alerting people. This isn't just insults, it's escalation. At the same time, I want to make sure nobody takes my stance as an invitation to glorify arms or vigilantism. I'm not saying we should all go out and carry weapons to solve every disagreement. That's dangerous thinking. What I'm saying is this: once you are visible, you owe it to yourself to consider your safety. That could mean changing routines, avoiding certain public appearances, hiring security for events, or yes, in some cases deciding to legally carry and learn how to protect yourself responsibly. Made out of caution, not bravado. People making threats online often don't realize how simple things can spiral. One minute it's a message or a mean tweet. The next minute someone in the comments finds that message and decides to be the one who makes it real. That's why I talk about it. Not to scare my audience, but to remind other creators that virality comes with responsibility and risk. You can't have your face on a billboard in everybody's feed and then act like anonymity. will save you from consequences. It won't. So, yeah, I posted the exchange. I wanted people to see the tenor of the threats and the context, the gun on camera, the magazine, the certificate claiming expertise. I wanted to make it clear I don't take that lightly. But at the same time, I keep preaching restraint. I don't want violence. I'd rather de-escalate, walk away, and keep making content that doesn't get somebody killed. If you can avoid feeding the fire, do it. If you can walk away from a fight and live to make another video tomorrow, that's the smarter move. Ultimately, being public means you have to make hard choices about how to show up. You have to weigh your freedom of expression against the potential real-world fallout of being provocative. For me, that means calling out threats, being transparent when necessary, and taking sensible steps to protect myself. Not for the thrill of it, but because the internet sometimes attracts people who blur the line between words and action. And that's something no content creator should accept lightly. Especially in Miami, this guy kept saying, "You want to come try me?" and threatening me, basically daring me to show up so he could hurt me. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, and I don't endorse violence, but messages like that make you take threats seriously. I've seen people treat it like a game, but threats of shooting aren't a joke. I post these exchanges to show what influencers face: constant harassment, death threats, and people trying to provoke fights. I believe in the Second Amendment and in self-defense, and I'm prepared to protect myself if someone actually tries something, but my content isn't meant to provoke whole groups or start wars. What worries me is how some commentators escalate, pulling out guns on camera, showing magazines, and daring people because that behavior invites danger for everyone involved. When someone posts that you'll pass away if you mess with them, it usually reveals fear more than strength. If they truly felt invincible, they wouldn't broadcast the threat. People who keep daring others to "come try me" are often shaken underneath. But the dangerous part is that a deranged person who decides to act isn't worried about consequences. Once someone's mind is made up, they won't care if they live or die. That's what makes surprise attacks so lethal. The victim has no chance to defend themselves, and by the time it happens, you're suddenly in a precarious position with no opportunity to react. As influencers, we see this all the time: constant harassment, people escalating for attention, and streams where guns and magazines are waved around. I don't want violence, and I don't promote it, but these realities make creators rethink how and where they show up. It's a sobering reminder of how quickly online hatred can spill into real-world danger. Being an influencer is terrifying. You're recognizable everywhere, and that visibility makes you vulnerable. Imagine if a prominent creator were attacked. You'd be scared to leave the house. I've had people threaten me, and you always know that at any moment someone who hates your opinions could show up where you least expect it. Just the other day, I was grocery shopping, and a man who clearly recognized me came over to talk. If he'd had bad intentions and a weapon, I would have been helpless. That's the new reality. What you do online can follow you offline. It used to be that internet beef stayed online, but now creators face the same real-world risks that musicians and other public figures have long dealt with. So no, it's not just online anymore. Your words and the attention they draw can put you in real danger. People are watching everything influencers do now, and some take it way too far. When you act tough or draw a lot of attention, there are always people out there who think they can gain clout by confronting you, or even trying to harm you. That's what makes being an influencer dangerous today. It's not just about making jokes or sharing opinions anymore. We've seen YouTubers get robbed, have their homes broken into, or get targeted just because someone wanted to test them or steal from them. It's become a real-world risk where people blur the line between entertainment and reality. Some think it's all for show, but it's not. Especially if you act bold or tough online, someone might take it as a challenge. And no matter how skilled or trained you are, nobody wants to face someone who has nothing to lose. That's the scariest kind of person any creator could encounter. People are unpredictable, and if you run into the wrong person on the wrong day, someone who has nothing to lose, you might not make it home. Most people don't announce that they're about to do something violent. It just happens suddenly, and you can't prepare for it. That's why running your mouth online or acting tough can backfire fast. You never know who's watching or how seriously they'll take it. Personally, I'm not interested in that kind of drama. I just want to stick to making my jokes, doing my shows, and living my life peacefully. No argument or opinion is worth dying over. If something you believe is so controversial that it could put you in danger, sometimes the smartest thing you can do is keep it to yourself. That's a lesson every content creator eventually learns. Used to everything that I used to come. As I've gotten older, my mindset has changed in ways I never could have imagined when I first started creating content. You know, when you're younger, there's this constant pressure to say everything that comes to your mind, to share every thought, every opinion, every reaction, especially in the social media age. You think people need to hear what you have to say at every moment, and that the world somehow depends on your commentary. But the truth is, they don't. Most of the time, people are just scrolling. They'll listen for a few seconds, agree or disagree, and move on with their day. What I've learned with time is that not everything that crosses my mind needs to be shared with the world, and honestly, it's nobody's business but mine. There's freedom in keeping some things to yourself, in knowing that you don't owe the internet your every thought. As I've matured, I've realized that peace and privacy are luxuries that many of us give away too easily. When I was younger, I used to think being vocal about everything showed strength or authenticity. Now I understand that true maturity often shows itself through restraint. You don't need to jump into every argument, respond to every critic, or prove your intelligence to strangers online. Every time you speak, you give people something to interpret, to twist, or to hold against you later. That's just the way the game goes. And when you've been in this business long enough, making videos, doing commentary, dealing with different personalities, you start to appreciate silence more than noise. These days, I'm perfectly fine just minding my own business and focusing on what I need to do. That's growth right there. There's a sense of power in not reacting to everything. The internet rewards outrage. It loves drama. It thrives on controversy. But peace doesn't need an audience. I wake up every day with new goals, new projects, and a new understanding of what really matters. Taking care of myself, my family, and my purpose. I've learned that consistency, discipline, and self-awareness do more for you in the long run than shouting into the void for attention ever will. And look, don't get me wrong, I love creating. I love engaging with my audience, breaking down celebrity news, and talking about the things that make people think or laugh. But I've also come to understand balance. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't be online 24/7 and still expect to live a healthy, fulfilling life. At some point, you have to step back, breathe, and exist outside of the internet. That's when real life happens. That's when you realize who you are without the comments, without the likes, without the validation. When you can sit in silence and still feel complete, that's when you know you've grown. I don't have to be loud or constantly online to prove anything anymore. For a long time, I thought activity equaled success. Posting every day, responding to every trending topic, debating every critic. But now I see that moving in silence often produces the loudest results. You don't have to announce every plan or every move. Sometimes, just doing the work and letting the results speak for themselves is the most powerful statement you can make. There's a kind of quiet confidence that comes with experience, a belief that you don't have to prove yourself because your track record already does. And that's really what staying grounded is about. It's easy to get lost in this digital world, to chase the next viral moment or the next big reaction. But I remind myself daily why I started doing this in the first place. It wasn't for fame. It wasn't for attention. It was to share perspectives, to entertain, and to bring something real to the table. Over time, I've realized that authenticity doesn't mean oversharing. It means being honest, thoughtful, and intentional about what you put out into the world. The more grounded you are, the more you can filter out the noise and focus on what truly matters. And that brings me back to where I am now, content to stay grounded and keep moving forward. I've been through ups and downs, criticism, misunderstandings, and growth. All of it taught me that peace is the real success. You can have the followers, the fame, the money, but if you don't have peace, none of it matters. I'd rather move slower and stay true to myself than move fast and lose who I am in the process. Every new day is an opportunity to improve, to learn, and to appreciate how far I've come. So that's it, y'all. It's your boy O'Shea, Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Jump. And as always, I appreciate every one of you for tuning in, for rocking with me through the years, for supporting not just the content, but the growth behind it. If you take anything away from this, let it be this. Maturity isn't about being right all the time. It's about knowing when to speak, when to listen, and when to simply let things go. Life's too short to argue about everything online. Sometimes, the best move is to mind your business, protect your peace, and focus on your purpose. Thanks again for all the love and support. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another episode. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and keep striving for better every single day. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.